Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our whole mission here is, well, to cut through the noise, really explore complex topics, and bring you the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're confronting a deeply urgent and honestly heartbreaking question. You see the headlines right? They often tell a story of progress, suggesting Chicago is getting safer. But the question that keeps nagging, the one we're really focused on today is, why are kids still dying? We're talking about children like Demetrius, just 10 years old, loved drawing superheroes, playing basketball.
Yeah.
You know, then, on June 15th, 2025, a stray bullet. It ended his life while he was just walking home from the park. And he's one of hundreds of children shot in Chicago this year alone. So this deep dive, it's dedicated to understanding this really pressing issue. We're pulling from articles, research, community reports, trying to truly grasp what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, it's an incredibly heavy topic.
Yeah.
And we're definitely approaching it with the gravity it demands. Our journey today, it'll take us through the official data, but then we'll peel back those layers, to reveal the underlying causes of this violence. We'll also highlight the, frankly, courageous efforts of people on the front lines and confront some of those stubborn roadblocks that prevent lasting citywide change. This is really about understanding the full picture, the often hidden picture, not just the easy headlines.
Okay, so let's dig into this paradox right away. It's right there at the surface.
Yeah.
When you look at the Chicago Police Department's reports, say for the first half of 2025 compared to 2024, there seems to be, well, significant good news. Homicides down by about a third. Shootings decreased by almost 40%. I mean, on paper, that paints a picture of a city moving towards greater safety. So the obvious question is, if the city is safer, why do children like Demetrius still become victims? What's the real story hiding behind those encouraging numbers?
Well, what's truly striking here, and maybe concerning, is how citywide statistics can sometimes obscure a very different reality on the ground. While those overall numbers show improvement, yeah, they unfortunately mask a really stark truth. Violence remains heavily concentrated in specific South and West Side neighborhoods, communities that are predominantly Black and brown.
Right.
And in these areas, the homicide rates are actually 10 times higher, 10 times, than in the more affluent parts of the city.
10 times.
Yeah. So even with fewer overall incidents reported citywide, the lethality of those incidents, well, it's surged. And this is often due to the widespread use of things like high-capacity magazines and illegal firearm modifications. They just amplify the fatal outcomes.
Especially for children caught in the crossfire.
Exactly,
Right.
especially for kids.
Yeah.
There was one analysis, I think, from the Chicago Tribune in 2025. It noted a significant 12% increase in gunshot fatalities,
Fatalities increased,
Yeah.
even with fewer shootings.
even with fewer shootings overall. So for families enduring this relentless grief day in, day out in these specific communities, those positive citywide statistics, they offer very little solace. This is really where that whole idea of progress feels hollow, just
Yeah.
disconnected from their daily life.
That is such a stark contrast between the numbers and the lived experience. It really highlights the problem. And this paradox, it really points to deeper systemic roots, doesn't it? So moving beyond the immediate violence we see and hear about, what are the underlying factors? What's truly cultivating this crisis? What are those socioeconomic conditions that feed this tragic cycle?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, we see decades of systemic issues. They've kind of woven together to create this really vicious cycle of violence. We're talking about profound disinvestment in these communities. Things like underfunded schools that just lack basic resources, scarce job opportunities, even limited access to basics like fresh, healthy food. Food deserts. And this environment, it cultivates deep economic despair, which tragically can drive young people towards street life. They're searching for belonging, maybe purpose, or just income that isn't available through, let's say, traditional channels.
So it's not just about the moment of violence, it's about the environment that leads up to it.
Precisely. In fact, institutions like Rush University, they've actually gone as far as classifying this whole situation as a public health crisis.
A public health crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And consider this statistic. The firearm death rates for young Black boys are 6 times higher than for any other demographic group. 6 times.
It's staggering.
It is. And this isn't just about physical injury either. The constant exposure to violence, the threat in these environments, it literally rewires developing brains. It leads to high rates of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and the normalization of aggression just as a survival mechanism.
So the trauma itself becomes part of this cycle.
Absolutely. Research, there was a 2023 study in the Journal of Trauma. It revealed a really chilling statistic. 50% of surviving young Black male victims face re-injury within 5 years.
Re-injury.
And a tragic 20% of those, 1 in 5, eventually succumb fatally.
Oh, my God.
Furthermore, you look at reports from community organizations like Build Chicago. Their 2025 report indicated that a staggering 61% of the youth they work with witnessed gun violence in just the past 3 months.
61% in 3 months.
Yeah. Think about that constant exposure. So this trauma, this deeply ingrained chronic stress, not the children themselves, that's the underlying disease really fueling this epidemic.
That really underscores the profound invisible wounds that must linger long after the sirens fade. Just unimaginable. But, amidst all this devastation, there's also immense resilience, isn't there? A powerful human spirit that refuses to break. We actually have a powerful quote from a mother that I think truly captures the raw human impact of this crisis. She said, "You never think it's your door, sirens wail, you pray, then it's your baby. His laugh filled the house, now it's just quiet, the loudest silence." Wow. That raw grief, it's unquantifiable by data, isn't it? It just resonates so deeply. And it compels us, I think, to look at the remarkable efforts happening on the ground, the voices rising from within these communities, offering pathways to healing.
Indeed, and it's those individual stories like that mother's that truly remind us why this work, despite the, sometimes grim statistics, is so profoundly urgent. And it raises that important question, what can be done? What actually works? And the hopeful answers, they seem to be emerging directly from the very communities most affected.
That makes sense.
Yeah, organizations like Chicago CRAD and the Institute for Nonviolent Chicago, they're approaching violence not just as a crime issue, but as a preventable disease. That's a crucial shift in perspective.
Treating it like a public health issue, like you said.
Exactly. And their methods are incredibly hands-on, very community-driven. They employ credible messengers, often ex-offenders themselves, people who have lived experience. They act as conflict mediators. They provide therapy, offer essential job training, even housing support. It's holistic. And beyond these formal groups, you have youth leaders themselves organizing peace walks, tirelessly advocating for resources, actively creating safe spaces amidst the chaos.
Kids leading the way.
Yeah, young people taking charge. And there's real evidence of their impact, too. A 2024 Community Health Journal report actually attributed a 15% violence reduction in the specific areas they target to these very efforts.
15% reduction, that's significant.
It is. And over 300 youths have been engaged in these programs just by mid-2025. It truly emphasizes that these at-risk youth, they're vital partners in healing, not merely perpetrators to be managed.
So, okay, if these solutions exist, if these incredible grassroots efforts are making such a tangible difference in specific areas, why isn't true progress happening faster, like across the entire city? This brings us, I guess, to the frustrating reality of policy and political gridlock, right? Given what you've just said about the impact of these community groups, how do you respond to arguments that might prioritize, say, traditional policing methods more heavily, especially from a political standpoint?
Yeah, that's a critical point. And look, while policing certainly has a role to play, the situation clearly shows us it's just insufficient on its own. It's like trying to mop a flooded floor without ever turning off the tap. You have to address the source.
Right, the upstream factors.
Exactly. Those citywide declines we talked about, unfortunately, they obscure these persistent, stagnant neighborhood conditions, and they actually mask widening safety disparities. The safe areas are getting safer, maybe faster, than the dangerous ones are improving.
So the gap is actually growing.
In some ways, yes. And add to this, the pervasive spread of deadlier weapons, which we mentioned earlier, makes every incident potentially more fatal. So true progress really requires these upstream solutions tackling the root causes before violence happens. We're talking about things like equitable school funding, really aiming to close that existing, $2,000 per pupil gap.
Wow, $2,000 per student difference.
Yeah, which means better resources, more counselors, richer educational opportunities that might steer youth away from street life in the first place. It also means creating real economic opportunities, job creation, skills training, and providing robust mental health support to address that deep-seated trauma we discussed.
Makes sense.
Now, the Reimagined Public Safety Act, proposed back in 2024, it aimed to redirect funds toward these critical areas. But its $50 million allocation, it remains underfunded by about 30%.
Underfunded by almost a third.
Right. And then there's significant political gridlock at play. You have debates over crucial gun control measures, like banning high-capacity magazines, facing immense resistance from pro-gun lobbies. Meanwhile, essential federal aid for these vital community programs seems to just languish in Congress.
So funding stalls, policy stalls.
Exactly. And here's a really critical point that community leaders have highlighted. Mayor Brandon Johnson's 2025 budget actually cut $50 million from violence prevention programs, citing fiscal constraints.
Cut funding, despite the need.
That's what the activists argue. They point to a $200 million surplus elsewhere in the budget. And this leads many to argue that it reflects a troubling prioritization of downtown development over the distressed neighborhoods where these kids are actually dying.
Priorities seem skewed, according to that.
That's the argument. And a 2025 Illinois Policy Institute report kind of highlights a glaring imbalance. 70% of anti-violence funds currently target policing, not prevention or those crucial upstream solutions. So this persistent stalemate, unfortunately, it just perpetuates a status quo where kids remain vulnerable. It really underscores the urgent need for unified, proactive action, not just reaction.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean for the human cost? I mean, each statistic we've talked about today, it represents a life, doesn't it? A family, a whole community that's been irrevocably altered. Beyond Demetrius, there's the 14-year-old killed in a drive-by on July 1st, 2025. These are just profound losses. Families lose futures, communities lose potential, and the city, in a very real way, it feels like it loses its soul with each one.
It really does. Yet, hope truly persists. It has to. And it's fueled by this immense human cost and a collective resolve that simply won't give up. It's in these grassroots movements where you really see a beacon shining through the darkness. Mothers like Demetrius's, they've joined groups like Purpose Over Pain. And since June alone, they've collectively mentored over 100 youths, guiding them through grief and towards positive paths.
Turning pain into purpose?
Exactly. Local churches are also stepping up, hosting trauma counseling, serving more than 500 families just in 2025. So while the system lags and the political will sometimes seems to falter the strength of the community right there on the ground, it demonstrates incredible power and a fierce dedication to change. It's truly, truly inspiring when you see it.
It absolutely is. So we've explored Chicago's really complex situation today. We've moved beyond those simple headlines to try and uncover the paradox of progress, right? We look at the systemic issues at play, the incredible community resilience that exists against all odds, and the persistent political challenges that are holding back wider change. A child's death is, quite simply, society's failure. There's no other way to put it. Numbing ourselves to these headlines or distancing it like it's just their problem over there, it ignores our shared responsibility, doesn't it? This isn't just about gangs and guns. It's deeply rooted in poverty, in segregation, in trauma, and, yes, in that incredible resilience we just talked about. It's a crisis that links, postcard Chicago, the shiny downtown, to the very streets where kids are afraid to take steps homeward. Closing this painful gap, it demands systemic change. Things like equitable funding for schools, real economic equity, widespread access to mental health support. It goes way beyond any quick fixes or just policing. We really encourage you to explore the work of organizations like Chicago CRED, the Institute for Nonviolence Chicago, and Build Chicago. And definitely look into supporting Purpose Over Pain if you can. And hey, for more deep dives into complex topics like this one and to get great information, we highly recommend you visit Mind Expansion Daily. Seriously, you'll find incredible insights there that help you become truly well-informed. And while you're there, please be sure to like and subscribe to their content. It really helps support getting this kind of information out there. We also want to challenge you, our listener. What stands out to you from today's deep dive? Do you agree or maybe disagree with our summary of the challenges and the potential solutions in Chicago? We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Demetrius and all his peers, they deserved futures. They deserved lives, not statistics. The real question, I think, for all us is how will we collectively honor them with action, starting now? Keep seeking to understand these complex issues, folks, and please stay engaged.